Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down Penn State. We talked elite money based on the contract extension given to James Franklin with Tim Aiden right here from Black Shoe Diaries on SB Nation. Elite programs, Tim, and Penn State is right on the cusp, maybe the leader of the next pack behind the Alabama Clemsons and Ohio States. You need typically an elite quarterback. Sean Clifford put up some nice numbers in 2019. I would think that based on my observations, it's really about consistency. The arm talent is certainly there.
Right. He's a guy who's certainly got the physical tools, I feel, to maybe be that elite quarterback. Hasn't quite reached that level yet. And the hope is that, second year as a starter, and also with Kirk Shiraka, the new offensive coordinator, working with him now. Also, he's now the quarterback's coach as well. Shiraka working with him, perhaps he can, work wonders with him the way he did with Tanner Morgan at Minnesota last year, and that in turn could perhaps make him the kind of quarterback where you can rely on him if it's a tight game late. You can rely on him to drive your team down the field and win you the ball game. That's what all these elite programs, the ones that are consistently in the college football playoff or winning the whole championship, one thing they share in common is they all got that elite quarterback, that guy who can, when it's crunch time, he can drive your team down the field, make the plays that need to be made. And I think Clifford's certainly capable of that. Whether he reaches that it's something we obviously won't find out until this fall. But I remain an optimist regards to his development. And as far as the quarterback picture behind Clifford, Will Levis, I'd be very surprised if he's not the backup. He saw his share of playing time last year and was mostly a bulldozer type quarterback who would bowl over people. And I think he best made himself known in the Ohio State game when he bowled over the Buckeyes defense and they weren't quite prepared for him after Clifford left the game with an injury. And that in part helped spark Penn State's rally to make things interesting when they fell down 21-0. And he also got his first and only career start against Rutgers when they were just trying to rest Sean Clifford. And, again, showed off great running skills. He's got a strong arm, but there's definitely accuracy needs some work. But he's, he's shown that he's a capable backup who can, get things done if he needs to. But obviously, it's clear Sean Clifford is the number one guy going forward. Behind Levis, it's a battle for the third spot between a pair of redshirt freshmen, both former blue chip recruits, Taquan Roberson and Michael Johnson Jr. Roberson's regarded as probably the better passer of the two, and Johnson's the more athletic runner type compared to them. But I know Roberson saw a little bit of action. He even threw a pass against Rutgers, if I'm not mistaken, late in the game. So he's actually seen some game action, unlike Johnson has. And they've also got Micah Bowens, true freshman, coming in from Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas, which is regarded as one of the best high school football programs in the country. He's regarded as a very athletic guy. The arm needs some work though, so I very much expect him to redshirt this year. And whether he eventually becomes a guy who seriously pushes the starting job remains to be seen. But that's who's coming in. That's the new addition at quarterback. And as far as recruiting, they're obviously the guy they would love to get. Their dream target would be the 5-star quarterback from Gonzaga High School in DC, and that's Caleb Williams. Although it sounds like for now, Williams, it sounds like Oklahoma and I think LSU have been mentioned as front runners for him, but Penn State's still in the mix. Christian Veilleux might be more of a realistic target for them. He's a 4-star kid, plays the Bullis School in Potomac, which is a place that Penn State's recruited kids from. It's actually the same school where Dwayne Haskins went to high school at, so bit of a history there at that school. and he's a 4-star kid, good arm. Seems to be. I think he's met up with Shiraka already on a visit, so he seemed like the two of them have hit it off well. So that's a guy to keep an eye on. So yeah, as far as quarterbacks though, it's Sean Clifford's world, and everybody else is living in it.
Just in regards to getting us straight on the recruiting rankings for these particular players that we're talking about that are the next wave to compete for the job, Taquan Roberson, as you mentioned, got a cup of coffee against Rutgers, 8th-rated dual-threat quarterback out of New Jersey in his recruiting class. Michael Johnson Jr., same recruiting class, number 15 dual-threat quarterback, all the way out of Eugene, Oregon. How they plucked him away from Oregon, I have no idea. Then you got Micah Bowens, as you mentioned, 16th-rated quarterback, dual-threat quarterback, Bishop Gorman, one of the highest-rated high school football factories in the nation. All right, Tim, I'm going to play a critic and detractor of Sean Clifford just a little bit. I've got nothing against the guy, and so certainly Penn State fans in general tend to jump on me when I just play the other side here, but I've got nothing against Sean Clifford. But I'm looking at the numbers, and I watch about 6 or 7 games a year, I would say, on Penn State. They play obviously high caliber football. I'm watching all the big games. So he comes out of the gate. I thought he played rather well the first couple games of the season. I saw much of the Pitt game. They obviously get like a 2 or 3 score lead. They've got to hang on for dear life. So his numbers, they're playing from in front most of the time. He only hits 14 of 31 in that game. Has a huge game against Maryland. They annihilate the Terps. Purdue, they annihilate Purdue. They've got a close game at Iowa. He only hits 12 of 24 in that game for $117. Obviously, that was a defensive win. Running game was huge. The Michigan game, he played rather well with 3 touchdown passes, hit 14 of 25. Of course, they jumped out to the big lead, had to hang on in that one. The Minnesota game was a downer with 3 picks. They got up there and got ambushed early against Minnesota, almost came back and won. He led a drive in which they could have pulled something out there and threw a pick late in that one. The Indiana game was back and forth. Again, the running game was so substantial in much of these games. He only hit 11 of 13, which was a great percentage, but only had to throw it 13 times against Indiana in a pretty close game. The Ohio State comeback was about defense, turnovers. He did throw 2 touchdowns against the Buckeyes, though, to complete those drives to get them close. And then, as we will talk about with the running backs, the running game was just enormous against Memphis, of course, with 400 yards, as he wasn't really counted on in that game on an 11 of 20. So a lot of like 50% completion percentages against the big teams in the big games.
Right. And that's, that's one area when we talk about making the step to elite, he's got to step up his performance against those better opponents. And that's where I'm hopeful, obviously this being his second year starter. And with all due respect to Ricky Ronnie, I think Kirk Shiraka is a significant upgrade in not just the offensive coordinator, but the quarterback coaching department. He's got a more proven track record. And I think also the thing we didn't really, I was not in the previous position, I think, on this recording, but offensive line, I think they're going to they got a significant upgrade. If you ask me about all the different new coaches they brought in, I think Phil Trautwein's the one I'm most bullish about. He's got an excellent track record from his time at Boston College, and as a coach and a recruiter, and he's coming in with a lot to work with. He's got 4 returning starters. The only starter they lost is Steven Gonzalez to graduation, and they also got a couple of strong backups in place too. So he's going to have a nice, strong veteran line to work with, which can hopefully give Cliff a little more time to work in the pocket and work on. I think the other valid criticism is Clifford's lack of checking down. It seemed a lot of times that he would be locked in on KJ Hamler or Pat Pratt, like his number 1, number 2 options, and then those weren't available. He'd take off and run. So and I think that's part led to some frustration from folks like I think Justin Shorter, especially, who ended up transferring. So I'd like to see. Would you like to see what I hope Kirk Shiraka does a good job working with him on is go looking for that 3rd or 4th option if your first 2 options are taken away. So like I said, yeah, there's definitely room for improvement But overall, I remain optimistic that he'll be able to correct those problems and make a leap forward in 2020.
Yeah, and to be fair, obviously, these players do not play in silos, regardless of the position. The running backs are dependent upon the offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. The quarterback is, of course, dependent on the wide receivers and first and foremost, the offensive line. So we've got to look to that. And wide receiver outside of KJ Hamler has been a bit of a disappointment for Penn State over the past few years. And you mentioned the upgrade in the offensive line play, plus first-year starter, and he should improve with a full off season as the guy.